From selling clothes out of the trunk of her car to running a top New York vintage boutique.
Our next guest is on a mission to bring the wonders of design, vintage fashion from the red carpet to the modern woman. Joining us is the author of the 100 Best Vintage Shops Online, Sammy Davis. Welcome, Sammy.
Thank you so much,
That's
Shannon.
such a great
Thank you so much,
name.
Lola. Thank you.
Sammy.
My parents accidentally blessed me with it because I was named after Samantha from Bewitched.
No way.
But Sammy stuck, so Sammy Davis Jr., you can't forget it.
It's a great name. You do it very well.
Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
let's talk about this career of yours. 10 years of experience from buying, selling, and marketing vintage both online and in stores. But can you please break it down to me? What exactly is vintage, designer vintage clothing? And I'm sure, is that what you're wearing today?
I am. I am wearing, all right, get this, Mr. Dino. What a name, right? Mr. Dino was one of the most fabulous designers in the 60s and 70s. His company folded in the 70s, which is why no one knows his name today. But he was known for making graphic print, very short dresses.
Yes.
That's very in trend today.
Yeah, it feels
It's very
a little
modern.
like Emilio Pucci.
It feels very Pucci, doesn't it? Someone said that earlier today. So
love it.
no, it's not Pucci, but I can
Mr. Dino.
pretend.
So
I
what
can pretend.
classifies that as designer vintage fashion?
Well, vintage, to be very technical with you, it is anything that's 20 years or older. So we're looking at about 1993 or older. Now, if it's over 100 years old, that defines it as antique.
Okay.
So anything from the teens, like Downton Abbey, that's one of the most popular period shows right now. Those are antique fashions. But Great Gatsby, those are vintage fashions.
I love that film,
Yes.
by the way. That
Oh,
update is
wasn't it wonderful?
amazing. Okay, moving right along. Celebs are really keen on vintage shopping. Why is that? Is it because it's definitely not going to be on the backs of every other person on the red carpet, so they like that individuality?
That's part of the reason, and stylists want their clients to stand out, to be talked about. And when a celebrity wears a designer Dior, a designer Halston, there's something more to say about that garment in the media. And it really comes down to, as well, it's about honoring the past and doing something different, being unique,
Sarah
being
Jessica
who you
Parker
are.
loves vintage. Natalie Portman loves vintage.
Yeah.
Zoe Deschanel, vintage.
Oh yeah, she's the
And
spokesperson
even
right
when
there.
some women are winning huge awards like Julia Roberts, they wear vintage.
Yeah, Natalie Portman, she is probably the shining example because in 2012 for the Oscars, she wore a Christian Dior
Yes.
dress,
was
beautiful,
stunning.
red polka dots from Rare Vintage, which is based in New York City. And after she wore it, it was auctioned for $50,000.
What?
We're kidding.
Because it was from his 1954 collection, which was at the height of Christian's fame, and then 3 years later, he actually passed away. So one of the last remaining pieces that was actually designed by Christian Dior. And that's another really great thing about vintage is some of the designs you purchase vintage were made by that designer, not someone else later on that's taking cues from what they established. These are the original pieces.
You've inspired me to go through my closet because I'm sure I have something 20 years old in that, but how do I know if it's worth any money?
Well, that's
That's what I need to know.
That's what everyone is asking these days because everyone thinks, oh, well, you know, I can go in my grandmother's closet and make a dime. Let me, you know. But what it comes down to, Shannon, is you do need to be educated, and it does take some time. You want to go online. You want to do your research. You want to see what things are averaging for on eBay, on Etsy, on the independent websites that I write about in the 100 Best Vintage Shops Online. And it does come down to the consumer. If someone really wants that Pucci dress, they're going to pay top dollar for it.
Okay.
But then there are some pieces that have collector's value because these names are just hot right now. Betsy Johnson is so hot right now because she has a show on the Style Network.
She's really having a moment.
She's having a moment and she's not even designing.
And there's some people who always have moments, like, and if you find a vintage Hermes bag, a vintage Chanel bag,
Yes.
golden.
Gucci, YSL. I mean, these pieces too are less than what you would buy new. And I argue are better quality.
That's true, because a lot of these
The
pieces
production
were
is different.
exactly. The production has
Handmade.
changed, handcrafted, exactly.
Yes. Made with love.
Made with a lot of
I say
love.
spread vintage love because these pieces were made with love.
Well, you've brought some vintage love with
I
for us to
brought
see today.
tons of love today. Oh my
so
God.
help hit me to this vintage style. What do
All
we see
right.
here first?
Okay, well, first we have Erica. who is so beautifully wearing a vintage Betsy
Erica
Johnson.
And Dan. He's wearing vintage too as well.
Oh yes, we all have a little bit on whether we know. So Betsy Johnson, she designed for a label called Alley Cat between 1970 and 1974, and this is an Alley Cat piece. And they were a juniors line that marketed everything as under $100. This is available on Shrimp to Couture for $625. Those cherries are quite valuable.
$625.
Yes,
My
yes.
goodness.
This is a collector's item. This could make it to a museum someday.
I could
I think
totally
so.
see Zooey Deschanel in this.
Oh, yeah.
She loves that quirky style, the bold, vivid
So
colors.
fresh.
That's so her speed, isn't it?
Thank you so much. Now, as we get ready for our next model, tell me, is it about a lot about patterns? I know a lot of the vintage looks have a lot of patterns in them.
They do. Patterns were emphasized. I think today we're much more of a minimalist style culture. But the patterns is what differentiates it from today's fashion. So next we have Lucy, who's wearing an Emma Daum from the 1950s. This is over 60 years
with this
old.
Dress.
Look at those rosettes along the bottom.
It's gorgeous.
This
and
is
that material. It's
Yeah.
exquisite.
Yeah. It's like a haute couture piece, and at $425. That's really valued at thousands. The craftsmanship. I wish I could flip it under so I could show you
Oh, I can see it from
the
here.
craftsmanship to make this
Handmade.
dress.
Those rosettes don't come easy. That's
Yeah.
not just tacked on. That is exquisite.
No, yeah. This
How
is
do
something.
you go about sourcing these dresses? She takes a deep
lot of
Top
hard
secret.
work.
Top secret.
I don't
Come
know if I can
on.
say. You know, relationships.
Okay.
Working with women that have wonderful closets that want to pass on the love to new wearers. What's great about vintage is you might have a piece that 2 other women have owned before. There's almost like a spirit in these pieces. I mean, who wore this dress before me? What was she doing? I don't know.
She's probably really funky and
She's
cool.
totally funky.
And
She had a beehive.
and she was hanging out in London on
Yep.
Carnaby Street.
Oh,
She was doing
absolutely.
all of that. Let's talk about this next polka dot number.
This is my favorite. Oh my gosh. This is a Bill Blass in the 1970s.
Bill Blass? I need
Classic.
to know how you found that.
Classic.
Oh.
She is actually a 30s silhouette because of how it drapes. It's a maxi length. But what I like most about it, it's classic polka dots. Anyone can wear it. But then it has that pop, pizzazz,
that color.
magenta pink lining along that cow neck. And Kathy is wearing it quite well.
She sure is.
I mean, I hope she has a love in her life who can see her after this and
Right.
just swoon because she looks lovely and any woman will look the
If
same
she
in this
doesn't, I'm
dress.
taking that dress
I know,
home
right?
with me.
Right.
Thank you, Kathy.
Right, thank you,
Now,
Kathy.
how can you tell a fake from a real? Because a lot of things, at
question.
times I see vintage things that look vintage, but people say, no, that's not.
Yeah, and it's a problem today because it's a problem and a good thing. Designers today are taking inspiration from the past. So you might look at something and say, oh, that's a 60s dress, but it's not. It's in
Made
a
yesterday.
fast fashion store. So the way you know, there are a lot of resources online. One is the Vintage Fashion Guild. You can compare the tags.
Okay.
You can look up a designer tag.
Oh.
You can look at how it's crafted.
very
If it's
smart.
made in China, it's not vintage. That is the #1 sign.
Wow, okay.
And a lot of pieces were made in America before the 80s. So if you see made in USA, chances are it's a vintage garment.
That
Thank
is
you. I like
great
that.
advice. Okay,
This
let's
is
talk about
beautiful.
this next number.
This is actually not officially vintage. This is from the 2002 Stephen Burrows collection. But I wanted to show it to you because it's a very 70s inspired discotheque
Very studio
dress.
before.
Staying alive.
Staying alive.
Sonia looks amazing in it. There's a slit in the back, slight scallops, which I love, a little bonus. A slight cow neckline, and it just skims the body perfectly. The material is beautiful.
She's giving me Diana Ross, 1975.
So it's okay to do vintage-esque type of dresses also then, right?
Absolutely. I think that what it comes down to is be inspired by the past and wear that empowerment on you and smile and shine.
Okay,
Yeah.
while
Have
we
one
bring out
more.
our next model, let's talk about SammyVintage.com. What made
Yeah.
you decide to start this site?
Well, I realized that there was no one online that was speaking to vintage fashion, particularly. There's a lot of fashion bloggers, there's a lot of women who represent fashion, but vintage, the past. I wanted to inspire every single woman to turn to vintage for inspiration for their contemporary wardrobe, whether it be jewelry, whether it be a dress, whether it be a piece of furniture. You can make that a part of your contemporary life. And I'm here to tell you how to do it.
And lead us along the path.
Lead us along the path of vintage, yes.
And this is very inspiring. What is this house?
Okay, this is my favorite.
Okay.
This is Missoni. This is a 1970s Missoni dress. This is not Missoni for Target, ladies and gentlemen. It's gorgeous because it's a wrap dress, and I just believe it can work on any woman's body. It can work for any occasion.
Beautiful.
See how the colors just pop?
They're bold, they're vivid, they announce that you're here. It's not a game with
You're
that
right.
dress.
That
like
is baba boom, hello.
Now, the shoes important. They look vintage as well.
You know,
That's not
actually, our
vintage.
model just did a really great job at pulling a lovely pair of shoes to pair with this dress. But this is a piece, again, I think museum quality for the future.
All right.
This will inspire many designers to come.
And it's so nice
Yeah.
to see the evolution of a designer.
Isn't it? Isn't it? But they still draw on the past.
Absolutely.
This is very much a Missoni.
It very is, but you can
Yeah.
see, it's so nice. I love it. You're looking at history.
You are.
Now, as we get ready to bring out all the girls for one last look, tell us how you were able to go from selling cars out of the trunk of your car, clothes out of the trunk of your
literally.
car, to now
Clothes
being
out of the trunk of my car.
yes, to now this.
I have no shame.
An expert.
Thank you. Well, you know, I had a passion for bringing vintage to creative women in New York City. I started selling out of the trunk of my car at flea markets. My car was broken into 3 times because of this. But I really believed in it, and I believed in it because I believe that vintage fashion is a way for us to shine our light from within. It's a way to research the trends of the past, to find something that's one of a kind that no one else owns. And that was the passion that motivated me to start my website and to be who I am today, which is a spokesperson for the vintage fashion industry.
And you're a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like your
so
next
much.
book. All right, I
All
like it.
right.
Thank you so much. Beautiful looks you have here.
Good job, Sammy
They look
Davis.
so
Good
great.
job.
You're watching Arise Entertainment 360.